In this tutorial video, I'm going to show you how to use the Cornerstone editor, also known as Pro, with your WordPress website. This will show you kind of some of the introductory tips on working with it and demonstrate how you can best utilize it to edit your content. So here I am adding a new page, and I would like to edit it with Pro. Generally, you're going to want to either publish the page or save as a draft before you actually start working with it. So let's go ahead and click Save Draft. And then we're going to go click on this Pro tab and click Edit with Pro. What this will do is load up the Pro/Cornerstone editor, as well as a preview page to view what we're adding to our page here. So on the left here, we've got some options. You'll notice it says add a section to get started. So let's go ahead and do that. What this will do is add a whole new section to the page that will allow us to add content to that. So we've got our section here. As you hover over it, it will kind of show you what that section is. You can even click on it here. Click this little arrow here. It'll give you a layout. This will allow you to add columns if you want. So if we click this, we can do new columns. There's different alignments too. So if you wanted kind of a left sidebar, you can do that. Right sidebar, you can do that. It's no problem there. And then really what we're going to want to do first is let's add some content. So let's click Elements here. Let's add a headline. One thing to know about this editor, there's two types of elements. There's kind of the classic elements, and then there's the regular elements. The classic ones are going to be a lot simpler, and I'm going to show you what I mean. So let's do the headline. Here we have headline or a classic custom headline. So I'm going to do the classic custom headline. What I do is just drag it over here. As you can see, there's a headline right here. And on the left here, we're going to have settings for that headline. We can change the text of it right here. So let's say new text headline. So that's our new headline there. And you have just a couple options. You can choose a heading level. This corresponds to some of the code behind it, but as you'll notice, actually, if you change the looks like, you'll see it change size here in the preview window. But this one actually controls what it is in the code. And if you don't know anything about HTML, you can pretty much ignore this, but generally an H1 is going to be your biggest headline. H2 gets smaller, so you can kind of keep these corresponding. You can change the text color here. You can center it if you want within its section. And that's really all you need to know about that. Later on, you'll be able to just click here at any time and change this text. So that's fairly simple to do. So I mentioned that the classic elements are going to be easier to work with, but we have the other ones as well. So if I do headline again, what we use is this classic custom headline. There's also just regular headline here, and I want to show you how that's different. So this one, on the left, you still have all the settings for it. Right here is where you're going to change the actual text for it. So you click that, and you can change this. So this is a headline, not classic. So you can see that there. So that part's not too hard. Now, if we go back to the settings for this element, so we click that little X. Again, there's all these settings here. You'll notice there's just quite a few here, and this will really allow you to customize it however you want. But keep in mind, if you're just getting started, I just wouldn't even bother. I would stick with those classic elements because there is a lot to this. So you can kind of tweak the size of the fonts here. You can change what it is. There is a little bug in this version. Sometimes it doesn't display the full text that you have entered in there, but you don't have to worry about that. It looks like it's working right now. But there's just a lot of settings in here. You can mess with them. There's certain things. You can do margin, which affects how far it is from everything else, and padding. It's difficult to summarize what the difference is between margin and padding, but basically padding would include the background of this element, whereas margin would not. Difficult to wrap your head around that. But again, these are the more complicated settings. If you're just starting with Cornerstone, I wouldn't even mess with them at all. I would just leave them as they are. So So that's the difference between kind of the classic elements and the non-classic elements. But there's a lot of other elements in here. So one common one you're going to use is just text. Let's drop this here. So again, you're going to click this little area here to actually change the text. And you'll notice that by default, it sits in the code editor. Generally, again, if you're a beginner, I'd recommend using the actual text editor right here, which is more of what you're going to be used to for that. So obviously you have your bold, your italics. You can add links by highlighting text and clicking the link button. There's just a lot of options in here, and this is really closer to what the classic WordPress came with. So if you're used to that, this is what you're going to want to stick with. Obviously, you can edit this. So if you wanted to add more, you can do that. And you will notice that it should show up live here. Again, there's kind of a bug in this version. It doesn't always refresh exactly how you want it, but it should be there. You can click this X if you want to go back to the settings for this one. And let's see. So you see how it's really close to this headline above it? You could try adding some margin. I can make this, if I keep this linked, this link button, it will add margin to every side simultaneously. So you'll notice there'll be a margin here, above it, below it, and to the right. And that may or may not be what you want. It's probably not. So what I would recommend is leave the rest as 0, unlink it, and then if you want some space, just add some to the top here. And that should work well for you. So that's something you can do there. Let's go into, there's some things you can do with this section. Again, notice wherever you highlight, it'll kind of show you what you're highlighting. So if I click right on top of this, it'll let me do the text. I can click here to edit that text. I can either do the code or I can do the rich text editor. Same thing with the headlines. You can click here, you can edit it with this. But notice if I'm right between these two, I can select the column. Basically everything you have is within a column, which is within a row, which is within a section. So it's a little bit hard to kind of wrap your head around that, but it makes sense when you think about it. In this case, our column, since we only had one column in this section, is going to be just as big as that row. But if we go to manage layout, again, we kind of graphically visualize this. We have our section, which is the whole thing, and then the row, which is within it. We only have one row within this column and one row within this section, and then one column within that row. So let's add more so you can understand what that's like. So if we click add row, now there's an entirely another row below this as well. Let's go ahead and add a column to that new row. Let's do that. Let's do 2 equal columns. So here's our second row, here's our first row. You can see it as we hover over it there to visualize what it is. So we can add elements to these new ones. So if we did text again, add that here, and you'll see that it stays on that side. We can even, you can click this duplicate button on it when you're clicked on any element, and it will just duplicate that. So we got that there. You can click it and drag it. So I just did that, and now you can see we have 2 columns that are here. And that's how it's all sorted. So again, at any time, if you're clicked on a column, row, or section, you can click this manage layout button and it will bring you back here. Or you can just click layout here, and then that's how everything is organized here. And there's a lot of cool stuff you can do too. So duplication is not just limited to elements. So I can duplicate this one if I want, the entire section. So if I click duplicate, now we've got an entirely new section that has all the same content as that first one. And we could click stuff and change the content that's in here. So that's something cool you can do with that. You'll want to just explore what the different elements are. The main ones you're going to want are text, elements, headline. You can do image. So you can drag that to where you want it. Let's say we want it in this column here. For that, you'd click on source here to select an image for this. Here's just one I happen to have. As you can see one in there. You might want to add some margins or padding if you don't like the look of it. You can mess around with that. Or you could use the classic image element, which is sometimes a little easier to use. Click SRC, and then again you can select whatever image you like. But again, not as many options here, so there's only so much you can do. But you can do like circle, you can have it rounded like that. But that's how you work with that. For image elements, you should be able to just click on that element and to swap out the photo. You can click here and then select a new one, which is from your media library here. You can upload new files to it by dragging them here or selecting files, or you can use the ones from your existing media library. So if I want to swap to this, I can. You'll see it updates there. And again, this is the newer image element, the non-classic one. You just click source here, and you can select a new one from whatever you would like. There it is. Note that you'll notice the images don't grow any larger than the column that they're in or the row that they're in. That's just by default, otherwise it'd just be shooting out all over the place. So if you have an image like this that's really wide and skinny, it's not going to look very big, and that's just kind of inherent in what you're doing there. So you'd want to probably crop this photo to be nice and tall if you wanted it to display in this little column a little bit better. Yeah, let's jump into changing page templates. So if you want this, for instance, to be full width instead of having a sidebar here like this page currently does, here's how we do it. So go on the left here, click this little icon, and then under page template, we're going to select a different one. The one you probably want if you're trying to do full width is blank, no container, header, footer. And what that basically means is there's no left and right container keeping all the content in, so you can go full width, but we still have a regular header and footer. So click that, click done. You'll see it refresh here, and you'll see all the content kind of reload in here with the new full width template. So as you can see now, everything is as wide as the browser screen, or closer to it. The sections themselves actually are full width, and I can show you how that exactly works as well. So if we mouse over here, you can see that it says section 2, so this is one of the sections. Click on that. And let's say we want to change the background of this section to make it full width here. So click this background, and let's go ahead and make it gray. As you can see here, the entire background of this whole section is now that color, and this also kind of allows you to see how the section itself is full width, even if the content all falls within that. So that's how you work on that, and you change those backgrounds. There are other options as well here. So if you wanted to do background images and whatnot, this would be kind of how you do that. So if you click here, say these might not really be ideal images for that. Let me find one that is. So if I want this picture to be the background, that's how you do it. So you click the advanced, you can do that background lower layer and include that on there. In this case, this looks pretty terrible, but that's because I haven't changed any of the colors. So for instance, I can make this text white. Looks a little bit better. Maybe I'll make it bigger using that. You know, it's starting to look a little bit better. You can make this text different colors as well. That would probably help down here. Or actually, that's the box shadow. So actually changing the text color is down here. That's my bad. And let's make that white as well. There, now that's white. So that looks a little bit better. Again, I'm not really designing this at all. I'm just showing you how it works. So those are most of the things that you can do with Cornerstone, or at least that's an intro to working with it. There's a lot more elements in here that you can mess with. A lot of fun stuff in there, but most of them work in a similar way. So you're just you're clicking on your elements, you're changing the settings on the left here. You can always drag things around to other areas. That always works. You can duplicate anything, click on it, click duplicate. It'll always do that. And this should pretty much help you with any existing page you have, and hopefully adding new content as well. So this is, again, just an intro tutorial. So there's lots more, but feel free to reach out to me directly if you'd like to find out some of the things you can do.